Open the safe and 50 million will be yours, the billionaire teased. But the poor girl did something that shocked him. Before we continue, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. On the 63rd floor of the towering crescent spire, the air practically crackled with tension as Rami Al-Fadir glared at the unyielding steel door of his private vault. For 3 agonizing hours, his elite team of top-tier security specialists had thrown every trick in the book at it. Cutting-edge algorithms, high-resolution thermal scans, even a contemplation to call engineers in Berlin. Nothing worked. The digital lock stayed frozen, guarding the millions in cash and the critical merger documents Farid needed before his deadline hit in just 2 hours. "Sir, we've run through every standard and advanced method," said Marcus, the lead tech, wiping sweat from his temples despite the room's icy air conditioning. "The system refuses to open." The quantum vault's alarm screamed through the executive floor like a dying machine. Rami Al-Fadir slammed his palm against the biometric scanner for the 7th time, watching the red rejection light flash mockingly in his face. Sweat dripped down his temple, despite the climate-controlled perfection of Skyspire Tower's 63rd floor. 2 hours, he muttered, checking his watch. 2 hours before the Shanghai office pulls out of the merger. Dr. Helena Yu didn't look up from her tablet, fingers flying across holographic diagnostic screens that floated in the air around the massive titanium door. Her team of 4 security specialists worked in synchronized silence, their faces illuminated by the cold blue glow of error messages cascading across their displays. "The system's completely unresponsive to administrative overrides," Helena said, her voice tight with frustration. "It's like the vault developed selective amnesia, recognizes the architecture, accepts initial handshakes, then rejects everything at the authentication phase." Rami paced the marble floor, his $1,000 shoes clicking an anxious rhythm. Behind that door sat the only physical copies of documents worth $11 billion. Digital backups existed, sure, but the merger agreement required original signatures on original paper, sealed in a quantum-verified vault. Old money traditions meeting new money paranoia. "What about cutting through?" Rami asked, knowing the answer. "The walls are reinforced titanium tungsten composite with a self-destruct mechanism," one of the technicians answered without turning around. "Any breach attempt triggers an internal thermite reaction. Your documents become ash in 4 seconds. Rami's phone buzzed. Another message from his father. "Fix this, or the company goes to your brother." 63rd floors below, Luna Reyes squeezed through a maintenance shaft that most adults couldn't navigate. Her small frame, made smaller by months of inconsistent meals, slipped easily past. Rusty pipes and forgotten electrical boxes. The beam of her scavenged flashlight, held together with electrical tape and hope, cut through the darkness ahead. She'd discovered this route 3 weeks ago while running from security in the subway tunnels. The maintenance shaft connected underground transit to the service levels of several downtown towers. Luna had learned that Sunday evenings meant fewer guards, and the executive floors sometimes left catering trays in hallways after late meetings. The shaft opened into a supply closet on the 59th floor. Luna emerged, brushed dust from her torn jacket, and listened at the door. Silence. She cracked it open and peered into a carpeted hallway that probably cost more than most people's houses. Luna moved like a shadow, years of survival honing her ability to stay unnoticed. She'd almost reached the service elevator when voices echoed from around a corner. Not the usual security chatter. These voices carried urgency, stress, fear. "I'm telling you, the quantum encryption is eating its own tail," a woman said. Every authentication attempt creates a new conflict layer. We're making it worse. Then stop trying, a man's voice replied, cultured, expensive, desperate. Let it reset naturally. It won't reset naturally. The system interprets our silence as a sophisticated attack. It's designed to escalate security, not de-escalate. Luna's curiosity overrode her hunger. She followed the voices to a corridor blocked by a temporary security barrier. Through the gap, she could see people clustered around something. A door, massive and metallic, covered in warning labels and blinking indicators. A vault. She'd read about quantum vaults in a computer science textbook she'd found in a library dumpster. The encryption used quantum entanglement to verify authentication, creating an essentially unbreakable lock. Essentially being the key word. Luna studied the scene. 5 people with tablets and equipment that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned combined, all staring at error messages. The desperation in their body language was obvious. Whatever was behind that door, they needed it badly. The air vent above the security barrier caught her attention. Industrial size, probably led to the vault room for climate control. Luna had spent months navigating Chicago's hidden spaces. Vents were highways to the invisible. She backtracked to a janitor's closet, found a screwdriver, and located the vent access point. 5 minutes later, she was crawling through the ductwork above the vault room, her flashlight off, guided by the blue glow of diagnostic screens bleeding through the vent slats below. "We're out of options," the woman, Dr. Yu, based on her ID badge, said. "I recommend calling the manufacturer. Maybe they can remotely override." "The manufacturer is in Berlin," Rami said. "Even with their fastest response time, we're looking at 4 hours minimum. The deal dies in 2. "Then maybe the deal dies," Helena replied quietly. "I'm sorry, Rami. I've exhausted everything I know." Luna positioned herself over the main vent. Below, she could see the vault door clearly now. The biometric scanner pulsed with a slow red rhythm. The diagnostic screens showed cascading errors, but it was the timing pattern that caught her attention. The authentication requests and rejections weren't random. They followed a specific rhythm, like a heartbeat gradually accelerating. She'd seen something similar once, in a broken smartphone she'd tried to repair. The phone's security chip had gotten out of sync with its system clock, creating a feedback loop that locked everything down. The fix had been counterintuitive. Force a bigger error to trigger a full reset. "You're forcing the override sequence too fast," Luna said. 6 faces snapped upward. Security guards reached for weapons. Dr. Yu's tablet clattered to the floor. Rami froze mid-pace, staring at the vent where a small, dirty face peered down at them. "Who the hell?" one of the security team started. "The biometric scanner is sending authentication packets faster than the quantum core can process them," Luna continued, ignoring the shock below. "Every time you try to override, you're adding another layer of unresolved requests. The system thinks it's under attack." Helena recovered first. "Security, remove that child from—" "Wait," Rami said, raising a hand. His eyes narrowed, studying Luna with sudden intensity. "Say that again, slowly." Luna carefully pushed the vent slats open. "Can I come down? This vent is really uncomfortable." "Absolutely not," Helena said. "This is a restricted—" "Let her down," Rami interrupted. "You can't be serious. I'm paying your team 6 figures to solve this problem, and a child just identified something none of you mentioned." Rami gestured toward the vent. "Get her down safely." 2 security guards brought a ladder. Luna descended carefully, very aware of the weapons and suspicious stares. Up close, she could see the vault's interface more clearly, and confirmed her initial assessment. The timing indicators were definitely out of phase. "How old are you?" Rami asked. 11, I think, maybe 12. Luna approached the vault, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "My birthday's complicated. And how does an 11-year-old know about quantum vault encryption? I read a lot, and I fix broken electronics for food sometimes." Luna studied the diagnostic screens. "Can I touch this?" "No," Helena said firmly. "Rami, this is absurd. She probably heard us talking and—" "The authentication sequence is running at 847 milliseconds per cycle," Luna interrupted, pointing at a series of numbers scrolling across one screen. "But your quantum handshake timing is set to 903 milliseconds. They're drifting further apart with every attempt. That's why you're seeing cascading failures." The room fell silent. Helena slowly walked over to her tablet, pulled up a diagnostic file, and stared at it for a long moment. "She's right," Helena whispered. "The timing mismatch. I didn't even think to check the synchronization intervals." Rami knelt down to Luna's eye level. His expensive suit probably cost more than a car, but his eyes held genuine curiosity rather than condescension. "What's your name?" "Luna Reyes." "Luna, where do you live?" "Around." Luna's stomach growled audibly, betraying her. "Mostly the Red Line tunnels near Roosevelt." Understanding dawned across Rami's face, followed by something that might have been guilt. "You're homeless." "I'm resourceful." Luna turned back to the vault. "Can I try to open this?" "You think you can?" Rami asked. "Maybe. Probably. The problem is you can't manually sync the timing. The quantum encryption prevents external adjustment. But if we trigger the preservation protocol, it might force a system-wide reset." "The preservation protocol?" Helena pulled up another screen. "That's for catastrophic failures. It locks everything down permanently to protect the contents." "Unless you trigger it at the exact same time as a security protocol," Luna said. "Then the system gets confused about which takes priority. In that confusion, there's a small window where it might reset to factory authentication." "Might," Helena repeated. "And if it doesn't?" "Then the vault never opens again," Luna said honestly. "Everything inside is locked forever." Rami stood, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, destroying it. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. Somewhere down there, people lived normal lives with normal problems. Here, 63 floors up, an 11-year-old girl was his only hope. "If you can open this vault," Rami said slowly, "I'll give you $50 million. Luna blinked. "That's not a real number." "I assure you it is." Rami turned back to her. $50 million if you open that door in the next 90 minutes. "Rami, you can't be serious," Helena protested. "She's a child. She probably doesn't even understand." "I understand $50 million, Luna said quietly. "That's enough to never be hungry again. That's enough to help everyone in the tunnels. That's enough to matter." Something in her voice made the room uncomfortable. The security team shifted, suddenly aware of their own expensive watches and designer clothes. Rami saw it too, the weight of what their world looked like from the outside. "If you're lying about the money, I still want food," Luna added. "Real food, not garbage." "I'm not lying," Rami said. "Open the vault, and you'll never worry about food again." Luna nodded once, decisive. "Everyone needs to back away from the terminal. Every input right now is making it worse." Helena hesitated, then stepped back. Her team followed suit. Luna approached the main diagnostic console, her small hands hovering over controls designed for adults. I need to see the environmental monitoring system, Luna said. The environmental system? One of the technicians asked. That's just temperature and humidity control for the documents inside. It's also connected to the preservation protocol, Luna replied. If the vault thinks the contents are in danger from fire or flood or temperature, it activates protection mode. I need to make it think there's an environmental emergency. She navigated through screens with surprising confidence, pulling up subsystems that even Helena hadn't considered relevant. The environmental controls showed normal readings: perfect temperature, perfect humidity, perfect air quality. The problem is triggering the emergency without actually damaging anything, Luna muttered, more to herself than the others. Need to fake the sensors, but not so much that it triggers alerts in building management. Why would that matter? Rami asked. Because if building management gets an alert, they'll send people, and those people will interrupt what I'm doing, and we'll lose our window. Luna pulled out a small electronic device from her backpack, a tangle of wires, circuit boards, and components that looked like they'd been salvaged from a dozen different sources. This might work. What is that? Helena leaned closer despite herself. Signal modulator. I made it from broken phones and a car radio. Luna connected it to the diagnostic port with a cable that didn't look like it should fit, but somehow did. It can mimic sensor inputs. If I can send the right signals to the environmental system without actually changing the real conditions, the vault will think there's a problem. That's actually brilliant, Helena whispered. Luna's fingers flew over her makeshift device and the console simultaneously. Numbers began changing on screen. Temperature readings climbing, humidity increasing, air quality deteriorating. But the actual environmental sensors in the room showed no change. The vault's preservation AI is activating, one of the technicians reported, staring at his screen. It's initiating content protection protocols. Good, Luna said, not looking up. Now I need to trigger the security lockdown simultaneously. How? Rami asked. By doing exactly what you've been doing, forcing an authentication override, but this time with purpose. Luna glanced at Helena. I need you to try to override the authentication sequence again, but when I tell you, not before. Helena moved to her station. Ready. Luna watched the environmental warnings cascade across the screens. The vault's internal systems were fighting each other. Preservation mode trying to ensure the contents survived, security mode trying to prevent unauthorized access. The conflict was building, creating exactly the kind of system confusion Luna had described. Now, Luna said. Helena initiated the override sequence. The vault's alarm suddenly changed pitch, a discordant wail that made everyone wince. Red lights flashed across every surface of the titanium door. The diagnostic screens filled with error messages competing for priority. It's crashing, a technician said nervously. The whole system is not crashing, Luna interrupted. Resetting. Watch the core processor load. The numbers on screen climbed steadily. 70%, 80%, 90%. At 95%, Luna disconnected her device and killed the false environmental readings. The preservation protocol, suddenly seeing the crisis had passed, began powering down. But the security protocol, still processing Helena's override attempt, remained active. For exactly 3 seconds, both systems were in transition, neither fully active nor fully inactive. In that tiny window, the vault's quantum core found itself without clear instructions. The alarm stopped. The red lights faded. Every screen went black. Did it work? Rami whispered. I don't know, Luna admitted. If the reset completed, the vault should return to factory authentication in about 30 seconds. If it didn't, we just permanently locked everything inside." The room held its collective breath. Luna counted silently, watching the main console screen. 20 seconds, 25, 30. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The console screen flickered to life, displaying a single message: "System restored. Authentication required." "Try your palm now," Luna told Rami. Rami approached the biometric scanner like it might explode. He placed his hand on the sensor pad. Blue light swept across his palm, reading the unique pattern of veins beneath his skin. The scanner processed for what felt like an eternity. Green light. A series of mechanical clunks resonated from within the vault door. Heavy bolts withdrew. Pressure seals hissed. The massive titanium door swung open smoothly, revealing a climate-controlled interior lined with document storage. The merger papers sat undisturbed on the center shelf, exactly where they should be. "Oh my God," Helena breathed. "She did it." Rami stared at the open vault, then at Luna, then back at the vault. "You actually did it." "Can I have some food now?" Luna asked. Rami laughed, a genuine surprised laugh that probably hadn't escaped him in years. Yes, you can have food, you can have anything you want." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Security, have Chef Marcello prepare a full meal and bring it to the executive floor immediately. Everything. All of it." Luna sat down on the floor, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last 30 minutes drained away, leaving her aware of how tired and hungry she really was. She'd done it. She'd solved an impossible problem, and now she'd get paid and eat real food and maybe everything would be okay. But as she watched Rami carefully remove the merger documents from the vault, Helena already on her phone explaining the miracle to anxious investors, security guards relaxing their stance, Luna felt something unexpected: disappointment. Not in the outcome. The vault was open, she'd won, everything had worked. But in the realization settling over her like cold water. These people would take their documents, complete their billion-dollar deal, and return to their perfect lives in the sky. She'd go back to the tunnels with money, sure, but everything else would stay exactly the same. The world that created the situation where an 11-year-old genius lived in subway tunnels and scavenged for food, that world wouldn't change at all. "Luna," Rami said, kneeling beside her again. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the fear he'd been hiding. "I meant what I said. $50 million. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork tomorrow and—" "Why?" Luna interrupted. "Why what? Why are you paying me?" Luna gestured around the opulent room. "You're already rich. This whole building probably belongs to your family. The money I'd get would change my entire life, but to you it's just—" "What? A rounding error? A funny story you tell at parties about the homeless kid who opened your vault?" Rami's expression shifted. "That's not— And what about after?" Luna continued, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "You give me money, I disappear back into whatever hole poor people crawl into, and nothing changes. There's probably 100 kids as smart as me living in those tunnels, maybe 1,000 across the city. How many problems could we solve if anyone bothered to notice we exist?" The room had gone silent. Helena and her team pretended to be busy with equipment. The security guards studied their shoes. No one wanted to acknowledge what Luna was saying. "You're right," Rami said quietly. Luna blinked. "What?" "You're absolutely right." Rami sat down on the floor beside her, his expensive suit wrinkling against the marble. "I was going to pay you, feel good about myself and forget this ever happened. That's what people like me do." We throw money at problems to make them go away without actually fixing anything." Luna studied him carefully, trying to determine if he was being sincere or just saying what he thought she wanted to hear. Adults were usually one or the other, the mean ones who pretended kids like her didn't exist, or the nice ones who felt bad for 5 minutes before moving on with their lives. "So don't," Luna said. "Don't what?" "Don't forget. Don't just pay me and move on." Luna's voice gained strength, the same determination that had kept her alive for months in the tunnels now focused on something bigger. "You have money and power and people who listen to you. Use it to actually change something." "What do you suggest?" Rami asked, and Luna realized he was genuinely asking. Before she could answer, an elevator chimed. A man in a chef's uniform emerged, pushing a cart loaded with covered silver. Platters. The smell hit Luna like a physical force. Real food, prepared by someone who knew what they were doing, the kind of meal she'd only glimpsed through restaurant windows. "Your dinner, Mr. Al-Fadir," the chef said. "As requested, a full selection." "Thank you, Marcello." Rami gestured toward Luna. "This young lady is our guest of honor. Please serve her first." The chef uncovered the platters with practiced flair. Roasted chicken with herbs, fresh pasta in cream sauce, grilled vegetables that actually looked appealing, warm bread that steamed when broken open, a chocolate dessert that belonged in a museum. Luna's carefully maintained composure cracked. She tried to eat slowly, to show she wasn't some kind of animal, but hunger overrode dignity. She couldn't remember the last time she'd tasted anything this good. Maybe never. Rami and the others gave her space, turning their attention back to the vault and the documents within. But she noticed Rami watching her between phone calls, something working behind his eyes. 20 minutes later, Luna's stomach finally felt full for the first time in recent memory. She sat back, suddenly sleepy, the warmth of food and exhaustion combining into an almost overwhelming need to rest. "Luna," Rami said, ending his latest call, "I've been thinking about what you said. You're right that paying you and walking away changes nothing. So let me propose something different." Luna forced herself alert. "Okay. What if we created a foundation, a properly funded organization dedicated to finding kids like you, intelligent, capable young people who've been overlooked because they don't fit into traditional systems?" Rami's enthusiasm was building as he spoke. "We could provide education, resources, mentorship, real opportunities." "Another charity?" Luna asked skeptically. "There's already a bunch of charities. They don't help people like me. They help people like you feel better about people like me existing." Helena winced at the bluntness, but Rami nodded slowly. "Fair point. How would you do it differently?" "Make it actually about merit," Luna said. "Not about who has the right address or whose parents know the right people. Find the kids who can solve real problems under real constraints, because that's what life actually is. Give them tools and get out of the way." "What kind of tools?" "Everything you had here tonight." Luna gestured at the expensive equipment around the vault. "Access to technology, education from people who know what they're talking about, connections to opportunities. But run by people who understand what it's like to have nothing. People who won't judge a kid for being dirty or scared or angry." "Would you help design it?" Rami asked. Luna looked at him suspiciously. "You're just saying that to make me feel involved." "I'm saying it because you clearly understand the problem better than I ever could," Rami replied. "And because if we're going to do this, it should be built by someone who lived it, not someone who's just guessing from 60 stories up." Luna wanted to believe him, but she'd learned not to trust easy promises. "Prove it." "How?" "Put it in writing. Make it legally binding. Give the foundation real independence so you can't just shut it down when you get bored." Luna met his eyes steadily. "And put me in charge." "You're 11 years old," Helena interjected. "Legally, you can't—" "Then make me co-director with someone who handles the legal stuff while I handle the actual work," Luna interrupted. "If you're serious about this, prove it. Otherwise, it's just another rich person's hobby project that makes them feel important." Rami pulled out his phone again, but this time he handed it to Luna. "My lawyers are on speed dial. Tell them exactly what you want. They'll draft the documents tonight." Luna took the phone, still expecting this to be some kind of test or joke. But when the lawyer answered and she started explaining her ideas, the voice on the other end began taking notes seriously. They asked questions about structure and governance and funding that suggested they were actually planning to build this thing. 2 hours later, Luna sat in Rami's private office, a space of floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that cost more than most people's cars. The lawyer on the video call was walking her through preliminary documents for something called the Luna Initiative. "The foundation will be funded with an initial endowment of $200 million, the lawyer explained, with mandatory annual contributions tied to the Al-Fadir family's business profits. Ms. Reyes will serve as co-director alongside a board of advisors who cannot overrule her on matters of mission and program design." "And I can't be removed?" Luna asked. "Not without cause demonstrated through independent arbitration," the lawyer confirmed. "Mr. Al-Fadir is giving you genuine authority here." Luna looked at Rami, who sat across the desk, looking more exhausted than when the vault had been locked. "Why are you doing this? Honestly?" Rami leaned back in his chair. "Because you scared me." "Scared you? You're brilliant. Genuinely brilliant in a way that my expensive education and privileged life never made me. And you were invisible. If that vault hadn't locked, if you hadn't been hungry enough to risk sneaking into this building, I never would have known you existed." Rami's voice grew quiet. "How many others like you are out there? How many problems could be solved? How many innovations discovered if we actually looked?" "But you're looking now because I was useful to you," Luna said. "I'm looking now because you opened my eyes," Rami corrected. "Yes, you solved my immediate problem, but you also made me realize that my immediate problems are ridiculous compared to what you face every day. And if someone as intelligent as you has to live in tunnels and scavenge for food, our system is fundamentally broken." Luna studied him for a long moment. "You're going to get bored of this. People like you always do." "Maybe," Rami admitted, "but the foundation will be independent. The funding will be guaranteed. Even if I walk away, the work continues. That's what the lawyers are ensuring." "And the $50 million you promised?" Luna asked. "Separate from the foundation funding, your personal money to do with as you choose." Rami smiled slightly. "Though I hope you'll invest some of it back into finding and helping other kids like yourself." Luna felt tears threatening and forced them back. She'd learned not to cry because crying showed weakness, and weakness got you hurt. But sitting in this office, looking at legal documents that might actually change things, the weight of the past few months crashed over her. "I need to sleep," she said suddenly. "I haven't slept in a real bed I don't remember." "I've already arranged a hotel suite for tonight," Rami said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out proper housing, school enrollment, everything you need. But tonight, rest." A car took Luna to a hotel that probably cost more per night than most people earned in a week. The suite had a bathroom bigger than some apartments she'd seen, a bed that felt like floating on clouds, and room service that delivered hot chocolate without judgment. Luna stood in the shower for 30 minutes, watching months of grime and survival wash away. She wrapped herself in a bathrobe that was softer than anything she'd ever touched and sat on the bed, staring at the city lights through massive windows. Somewhere down there, in the Red Line tunnels near Roosevelt, other kids were huddling in darkness, trying to stay warm, stay safe, stay alive. Kids whose names she knew, whose stories she'd heard, who were just as smart and capable and forgotten as she'd been that morning. Luna picked up the hotel phone and called Rami's number, which he'd programmed into a new smartphone he'd given her. "Luna, everything okay?" Rami answered immediately. "I need a list," Luna said. "Names and locations of every youth shelter, group home, and service organization in Chicago by tomorrow morning." "I can do that. Why?" "Because if we're really doing this, we start now. There's kids who need help tonight, not next month when we've filed the right paperwork." Luna's voice was steady, determined. "And I know how to find them." 3 weeks later, Luna stood in a converted warehouse space in the West Loop. The Luna Initiative's temporary headquarters, while they searched for something permanent. Whiteboards covered the walls, mapping out neighborhoods, schools, shelters, and connection points. A dozen volunteers, social workers, teachers, former homeless youth who'd aged out of the system, moved through the space with purpose. Rami had been true to his word. The foundation existed, funded, legal, and independent. The lawyers had drafted documents that gave Luna real authority while surrounding her with advisors who handled the complex adult logistics. But the vision, the mission, the actual work, that was hers. "We've identified 43 potential candidates in the first round," one of the volunteers, a woman named Sarah, who'd been homeless herself as a teenager, reported. "Ages 8 to 17, all demonstrating exceptional problem-solving abilities in difficult circumstances." Luna studied the board. Each candidate had a photo, a brief description, and notes on their situation. A 12-year-old boy who'd rewired a shelter's electrical system to be more efficient. A 15-year-old girl who'd created an informal food distribution network for other street kids. A 9-year-old who'd taught himself 3 languages from library books. "How do we approach them?" Luna asked. "Most of these kids won't trust adults showing up with promises." "We send you," Sarah said simply. "They'll trust someone who lived it." Luna nodded. She'd spent the past 3 weeks in intensive catch-up education, working with tutors to formalize the knowledge she'd accumulated through desperate self-teaching. But she'd insisted on staying connected to the streets, volunteering at shelters, talking to kids still living the life she'd just escaped. "Then let's start with the Red Line group," Luna decided. "I know most of them already." The outreach went slowly at first. Kids who'd learned not to trust easy promises needed time to believe the Luna Initiative was real. But gradually, word spread. Luna Reyes, the girl who'd lived in the tunnels, who'd opened an impossible vault, who'd convinced a billionaire to actually fund real help, she was offering something different. By the 2-month mark, the initiative had 15 kids in their first cohort. They met daily in the warehouse space, working on real projects with actual resources. No grades, no tests, just problems to solve and tools to solve them. A 14-year-old named Marcus designed a water filtration system for areas with contaminated supply. An 11-year-old named Zara created an app that helped homeless youth find safe places to sleep. A 16-year-old named David built a solar charging station from reclaimed materials. News outlets started paying attention. "Homeless girl turned billionaire's advisor," the headlines read. "New foundation finds hidden geniuses in Chicago's streets." The publicity brought both opportunities and problems. "We're getting applications from all over the country," Sarah told Luna during a planning meeting. Kids, families, social workers asking how to replicate the model. We can't scale too fast, Luna cautioned. This works because we actually know these kids, understand their situations. If we try to go national without that foundation, we become just another program that looks good on paper but doesn't actually help. Rami attended these meetings when his business schedule allowed. He'd kept his involvement mostly in the background, ensuring funding flowed and legal obstacles were cleared, but letting Luna drive the actual work. The board is impressed, Rami said during one session. Several want to expand the model to other cities immediately. Tell them no, Luna said firmly. Not yet. They'll argue we're wasting opportunities. They can argue all they want. I'm co-director, and the documents say I have final say on mission and programs. Luna met his eyes. This isn't about making board members feel good about their charitable contributions. It's about actually changing lives. That takes time. Rami smiled. You've become very good at telling rich people no. I've had practice. 6 months after the vault opening, Luna stood in a conference room at Northwestern University, preparing to give her first public presentation about the initiative. The room filled with academics, philanthropists, social workers, and journalists, all curious about the homeless girl who'd supposedly revolutionized youth services. Luna wore new clothes, not expensive designer things, but clean, comfortable, appropriate. Her hair was cut properly for the first time in years. She looked healthy, rested, like a kid who'd had time to be a kid, but her eyes still held the sharpness of someone who'd survived when survival wasn't guaranteed. Thank you for coming, Luna began, her voice steady despite nerves. I'm going to tell you about the Luna Initiative, but first I need to tell you what we're not. She clicked to a slide showing the warehouse headquarters, kids gathered around workbenches covered in electronics and tools. We're not a charity. Charity implies you're giving something to people who can't get it themselves. These kids don't need charity. They need opportunity. Another slide showing Marcus's water filtration design. We're not a school. Schools teach what someone decided kids should know. We let kids discover what they need to learn by solving real problems. Slide after slide, Luna dismantled conventional approaches to helping disadvantaged youth. She showed data, outcomes, examples of innovation that had emerged from her cohorts, but more importantly, she showed the faces and told the stories of kids who'd been invisible. The world has never had a shortage of brilliance, Luna said, reaching her conclusion. What we've had is a shortage of people willing to look for it in uncomfortable places. Brilliance doesn't care about your address or your parents' income or whether you smell bad because you haven't showered in a week. But our systems do. She paused, making eye contact with different sections of the audience. The Luna Initiative isn't just about finding smart kids. It's about questioning why we overlooked them in the first place. It's about building systems that recognize merit wherever it exists, not just where it's convenient to find. Luna's voice grew stronger. Every kid in our program could have died in those streets, forgotten and unmourned. Instead, they're building water filters and writing code and solving problems that adults said were impossible. The room was silent, transfixed. We've identified over 600 young people across 8 cities who demonstrate exceptional ability despite extraordinary circumstances, Luna continued. 600 futures that were being wasted because nobody bothered to look. How many more are out there? How many potential solutions to climate change, disease, poverty? How much human potential are we throwing away because we decided certain kids don't matter? Luna clicked to her final slide. It showed a simple question. Who are you overlooking? I'm not asking you to donate, Luna said. Though if you want to support the work, Sarah has information at the back. What I'm asking is harder. I'm asking you to question every assumption you have about intelligence, merit, and potential. I'm asking you to look at the kid on the street corner and wonder what they could do with real resources. I'm asking you to make yourself uncomfortable. She stepped back from the podium. Because brilliance is everywhere. We just need the courage to see it. The applause started slowly, then built into something that felt more like recognition than mere appreciation. Luna saw tears on faces in the audience, saw people pulling out phones, probably to contact their own organizations, their own programs. Rami watched from the back of the room, his expression unreadable. After the formal presentation ended and Luna finished answering questions, he approached her in the hallway. "That was remarkable," he said quietly. "I just told the truth," Luna replied. "The truth is often the most powerful thing we can share." Rami hesitated. "I've been thinking about what you said that first night, about how I'd eventually get bored and move on." "And?" Luna crossed her arms, still guarded despite 6 months of proof. "You were right to worry about that. People like me have short attention spans for other people's problems." Rami leaned against the wall, looking more uncertain than Luna had ever seen him. "But I realized something. This isn't about me being a savior or feeling good about myself. This is about you and Sarah and Marcus and Zara doing work that actually matters. My job is just to make sure the money keeps flowing and the lawyers keep the vultures away." "That's actually helpful," Luna admitted. "I'm learning to be helpful in the right ways." Rami smiled slightly. "Your speech today, you challenged every person in that room to examine their assumptions, including me, especially me. Good, you need challenging." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people file out of the auditorium, many still engaged in animated discussions about what they'd heard. "Luna," Rami said eventually, "thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to tell me the truth that night, for not accepting $50 million and disappearing, for forcing me to actually do something that matters." His voice was sincere. "You changed my life more than I changed yours." Luna considered this. "We changed each other's lives. That's how it's supposed to work." 1 year after the vault opening, Luna returned to Sky Spire Tower for the first time since that chaotic night. The building felt different now, or maybe she felt different. She rode the elevator to the 63rd floor, accompanied by Rami and several members of the Luna Initiative board. The vault room had been converted into a small museum space. The massive titanium door stood open permanently now, and inside, where merger documents had once sat, was a different kind of display. Photos of the initiative's participants, their projects, their innovations, their stories. Marcus's water filtration system was being tested in 3 developing nations. Zara's app had been downloaded over 1 million times. David's solar charging stations were being installed in homeless shelters across the country. But it wasn't just the first cohort. The walls showed the expanding network. Over 600 young people identified, 200 actively engaged in programs, partnerships forming with organizations in 15 cities. "This is what was almost lost," read the plaque near the entrance. "Not merger documents, not billions of dollars, but the potential these young people represent. May we never forget to look." Luna stood in front of the display, studying faces she knew. Kids who'd been invisible a year ago, now creating solutions to problems adults had given up on. "They want to name a scholarship fund after you," Rami said beside her. "No," Luna said immediately. "Why not?" "Because this isn't about me. It's about changing how we see and value people." Luna gestured at the photos. Every one of these kids is someone that society decided didn't matter. We don't need scholarships named after people. We need systems that don't overlook brilliance in the first place. You're impossible to honor properly, Rami said with amusement. Good. Honor them instead. Luna pointed at the wall of faces. Tell their stories, show what they accomplished, make it impossible for people to keep ignoring kids like they were. The Luna Initiative held its one-year anniversary celebration not in a fancy ballroom, but in that same West Loop warehouse where the work had begun. Participants, volunteers, supporters, and media packed the space. Tables were covered with projects and demonstrations, the tangible results of giving resources to overlooked genius. Luna stood on a makeshift stage, looking out at faces that had become familiar. Kids who'd arrived angry and defensive, gradually learning to trust. Volunteers who'd committed to work that was often frustrating and always challenging. Rami and his team learning to support rather than control. 1 year ago, I was stealing food from this building, Luna began, pointing toward Sky Spire, tower visible through the warehouse windows. Living in tunnels, invisible to everyone who mattered. Today, I'm standing here because someone finally looked. She paused, organizing her thoughts. But I'm not special. I'm not uniquely talented or deserving. I was just lucky enough to be in the right place when someone needed help. Luna's voice carried across the silent warehouse. There are thousands more just like me who won't get that lucky break. And that's what we're here to change. She gestured to the projects around the room. Everything you see here, every innovation, every solution, every demonstration of brilliance, this came from kids that the system said didn't matter. Kids who were supposed to stay invisible, stay quiet, stay forgotten. Luna's eyes swept the crowd. We proved that wrong, but proving it once isn't enough. A new slide appeared on the screen behind her, a map showing cities across the country, each marked with potential expansion sites for the initiative. Next year, we're doubling our reach. We're partnering with organizations in 30 cities to identify and support overlooked youth. We're creating a network where kids can support each other, learn from each other, prove to the world that brilliance doesn't require the right zip code. Another slide showed policy proposals being developed by initiative participants. Changes to education funding, housing support, youth services reform. But we're not just helping individuals anymore. We're changing systems. Luna's voice grew passionate. Because every kid we help is proof that the current system failed. Every innovation from our participants is a solution that almost got lost. We're making it impossible to ignore that failure. The audience was rapt, sensing they were witnessing something significant. In 5 years, I want the Luna Initiative to be unnecessary, Luna declared. I want every school to recognize talent regardless of circumstances. I want every community to invest in their overlooked kids. I want the idea of a homeless 11-year-old genius to be impossible because we'd never let a kid with potential go hungry and invisible. She smiled, fierce and determined. That's the goal, not to build a big charity that makes us feel good, but to make ourselves obsolete by fixing the broken systems that created the need for us in the first place. Applause erupted, but Luna raised a hand. I'm not done, because I need something from every person in this room. She looked directly at the cameras recording the event. And everyone watching this later. The room quieted again. I need you to ask yourselves, who am I overlooking? What assumptions do I make about intelligence, potential, and worth based on appearance or circumstances? Luna's challenge hung in the air, because there's a kid in your city, maybe in your neighborhood, who's brilliant and desperate and invisible. What are you going to do about it? She stepped back from the microphone. The applause this time was thunderous, But Luna barely heard it. She was already thinking about the next challenge, the next system to question, the next overlooked kid who needed someone to finally see them. After the formal program ended and the crowd dispersed into smaller conversations, Luna found a quiet corner of the warehouse. She pulled out her phone and opened the photo gallery, pictures from the past year documenting the transformation from survival to purpose. There was one photo she returned to often, taken by a volunteer on that first night. It showed Luna sitting on the floor of the vault room, surrounded by expensive equipment and shocked adults, eating the first real meal she'd had in months. She looked tiny, dirty, exhausted, and utterly determined. "I keep that photo too," Rami said, appearing beside her. "Reminds me how close we came to missing all this." "We didn't miss it," Luna said. "That's what matters." "No, what matters is that you made sure we couldn't miss it." Rami looked around the warehouse at the kids demonstrating projects, the volunteers facilitating connections, the journalists documenting stories. "You turned one lucky break into a movement." "I turned one lucky break into a responsibility," Luna corrected. "Anyone who gets out has a responsibility to help others get out too." "Not everyone sees it that way." "Then not everyone should get out." Luna's voice was firm. "The point of success isn't to climb the ladder and pull it up behind you. It's to build more ladders." Sarah approached, holding a tablet. "Luna, we've got 3 major news outlets requesting interviews, 2 philanthropists want to discuss funding partnerships, and a senator's office called about testifying on youth services reform." Luna sighed. "I'm 12. I should be worried about homework and friends, not testifying to Congress." "You're 12, and you're changing how society values young people," Sarah said gently. "That's more important than homework." "Can I do both?" Luna asked. "Because I actually like learning stuff when it's not about survival." "You can do both," Rami assured her. "That's what the support structure is for. You focus on being a kid and changing the world. We'll handle the logistics." Luna looked between them, these adults who'd somehow become partners rather than authority figures. A year ago, she'd trusted no one. Now she was learning that trust, carefully given and continually earned, could build something stronger than survival. "Okay," Luna said. "Schedule the interviews, but only if they agree to feature other kids from the program, not just me. This isn't the Luna show. It's about all of us." "Agreed," Sarah said, already making notes. As evening fell over Chicago, the celebration continued. Luna moved through the crowd, stopping to examine projects, answer questions, encourage nervous participants who were sharing their work publicly for the first time. She was 12 years old, technically still a child, but carrying responsibilities that would overwhelm most adults. Yet she didn't feel overwhelmed. She felt purposeful. Late in the evening, as volunteers began cleaning up and participants reluctantly headed home, Luna stood at the warehouse windows looking out at the city. Somewhere in those streets, in tunnels and shelters and forgotten corners, other kids were surviving, waiting for someone to see them. Rami joined her at the window. "What are you thinking?" "That we're just getting started," Luna said. 600 kids found. How many thousands more are still invisible?" "We'll find them," Rami said with certainty. "We have to," Luna replied, "because the world needs their brilliance, and they deserve to be seen." She turned away from the window, back toward the warehouse full of proof that overlooking potential was a choice, not an inevitability. A year ago, she'd been invisible. Today, she was making invisibility impossible. The vault door that once protected merger documents now protected something far more valuable, the stories of young people who refused to stay forgotten. And Luna Reyes, The homeless girl who'd opened an impossible lock was opening doors for thousands more. Not with quantum encryption or clever hacks, but with something simpler and more powerful, the unwavering belief that every person deserved to be seen. The work was just beginning, but for the first time in her life, Luna believed the ending could be different. Not just for her, but for everyone still waiting in the darkness for someone to finally look. "Let's get back to work," Luna said, smiling. "We've got a world to change." And in that moment, standing in a converted warehouse, surrounded by evidence of overlooked brilliance finally recognized, it didn't seem impossible at all. If you enjoyed this story and believe that brilliance deserves to be recognized regardless of circumstance, then do something about it. Hit that subscribe button and join a community committed to questioning assumptions and recognizing potential wherever it exists. Drop a comment telling us about someone you know who deserves to be seen. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that their circumstances don't define their worth. And most importantly, look around your own community and ask yourself, who am I overlooking? Your engagement helps this message reach people who need it most. Subscribe, comment, like, and let's build a world where no child's potential goes to waste.